What is growth without partnership? What is partnership without a contribution? While as individuals much can be done, even greater can be achieved through collaboration. Rubbing elbows, supporting each other and sharing critical information help us to make informed decisions. And this goes a long way in shaping a successful people and nation. This is Jamaica Magazine and I'm your host, Theodore Henry. We're here to do just that, interact and share information that we think you should know. The news is up first.
Good day, I'm Lorraine Mendez and this is your JIS News for Tuesday, June 14. Prime Minister Andrew Holness is calling for increased partnerships among countries of the Western Hemisphere to stem the flow of small arms while improving security in the region. He says a significant number of countries are experiencing an increase in illegally trafficked weapons and small arms from within the region.
This is increasing the capabilities of criminals and increasing violent crimes, particularly homicides. Much more needs to be done to control illegally trafficked weapons in our region.
Mr. Holness made the call as he addressed the 9th Summit of the Americas in the United States on Friday. The summit brought together heads of state from North, South and Central America, as well as the Caribbean, to discuss matters affecting the region. More work will be done to improve and replace manual procedures at the Criminal Records Office in Kingston. During a tour of the facility last Thursday, Minister of National Security Dr. Horace Chang said further upgrade was necessary as the demand for criminal records had increased rapidly.
There are still a lot of manual activities here. There are a huge number of files. We have enough building space to file all the paper files. All this has to be brought into the 21st century and digitized.
In February of this year, the automated palm and fingerprint identification system was installed at the Criminal Records Office, allowing for the integration of data into a national security system. The $5 million multi-biometric identification system is facilitating a more efficient search process and faster turnaround time for investigation. A $20 million special welfare fund is being established for sports, culture and entertainment practitioners who fall on hard times. This is among other announcements made by Portfolio Minister Olivia Grange during her sectoral debate presentation recently. The fund will be managed by a committee led by Mike Fennell. State Minister of Health and Wellness Juliet Cuthbert-Flynn will also sit on the committee.
I am engaging in discussion with the Ministry of Social Security to get funds to top up the $20 million that I've identified to provide funds for these persons who have served Jamaica and who are now having difficulty just making ends meet.
More details on the fund will be announced at a later date. Meanwhile, insurance coverage for athletes representing Jamaica at the national and international levels has increased. A 3-year contract valued at $38 million has been awarded for the provision of group life and health as well as for personal accident. Sport Minister Olivia Grange says consultation is now at $3,500 and prescription coverage is $32,000.
Athletes are now able to access unlimited psychological, psychiatric services as well as dietitian, podiatrist, chiropractor, massage therapy, athletic therapy, and speech therapy. Other benefits under this contract include hearing aid services, renal dialysis, radiotherapy and chemotherapy, artificial limbs and other prosthetics, root canal, and permanent crown. And even support for miscarriage can be accessed. Additionally, athletes traveling overseas are also covered up to a maximum of $100,000 US.
The Consumer Affairs Commission, CAC, has secured approximately $3.8 million in compensation on behalf of aggrieved consumers for the period April to June this year. During that period, the CAC resolved 124 cases of complaints from a total of 499. Chief Executive Officer Dulcie Allen says complaints to the agency include matters relating to the purchase of electrical appliances, motor vehicles, and furniture. She says outreach activities have increased due to the relaxation of COVID-19 containment measures.
For the first 2 months, we were able to sensitize directly 12,974 persons, to educate them really on some of the things, some of the pitfalls, what they can do to ensure that their rights are not trampled on and that they also exercise their responsibility.
And finally, government is making lands accessible to female farmers between the ages of 17 and 35 for agribusiness projects. Agriculture State Minister Franklin Witter says this is among the ministry's interventions to strengthen, build capacity and increase participation in the Women and Youth in Agriculture program.
As you know, the ministry has a goal that 20% of the beneficiaries of our programs must include women.
Minister Witter was speaking at the annual Women in Agriculture conference recently. And that's it for JIS News today. I'm Lorraine Mendez. Thanks for watching.
What a way you're full of our roots and culture. That must be Jamaica 60. Jamaica 60? What a piece of news, Miss Matty. I feel like my heart going bust up.
Just in, the island of Jamaica is on the verge of celebrating its 60th year of independence.
A whole way of celebrating it. They say the people them, you know, them come here, you know. But you see, when our people decide, say the other people them free paper, burn up, them say if it's war, start it, whatever. We all collect medal panta fight, you know. Medal. Amount of tongue we give them, you know.
The celebrations are slated to begin on January 1st, 2022. Organized by the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport. We have more in this report.
I am on site and planning activities are ablaze. Persons are advised to download the Reggae Jamaica app to know what it activities for the Jamaica 60 celebration.
I download the app to get the updates then.
A government's duty is to secure the nation's well-being through development and partnership. And here's how Prime Minister Andrew Holness has been fulfilling and meeting those duties.
All last week, Prime Minister Andrew Holness represented Jamaica's interests at the 9th Summit of the Americas, held in Los Angeles, California. He also held bilateral talks with member states and met with business leaders on the margins of the summit. Find out more in this week's Jamaica House Weekly with me, Vaughn Davis. Prime Minister Andrew Holness left the island last Tuesday for the 9th Summit of the Americas in the United States. The summit brought together heads of state from the Western Hemisphere as they considered the theme, building a sustainable, resilient and equitable future. In his main address on June 10, the Prime Minister called on member states to increase partnerships to stem trafficking in small arms and improve security within the region.
This is increasing the capabilities of criminals and increasing violent crimes, particularly homicides. Much more needs to be done to control illegally trafficked weapons in our region.
Prime Minister Holness also addressed the ongoing migration of skills from poorer to richer economies, calling for a coordinated approach to bring jobs to workers in their home countries through investments. Mr. Holness welcomed the America's Partnership for Economic Prosperity, announced by U.S. President Joe Biden. The new agreement is expected to drive the Western Hemisphere's economic recovery and growth while delivering prosperity for working people. Prime Minister Holness also welcomed the announced U.S.-Caribbean Partnership to address the climate crisis, or PACC 2030. The initiative aims to improve access to development financing, climate adaptation, energy security and clean energy, as well as building resilient infrastructure in local economies.
This region of the world has the resources, all the resources, to secure peace and prosperity for all the people of the hemisphere. We have the leadership in this room at this conference to make it happen. Let us commit to using our best efforts to make the dialogue, the plans, and the agreements a reality.
On June 8, the Prime Minister shared Jamaica's COVID-19 experience and recovery efforts with the 4th CEO Summit of the Americas. Speaking specifically to how tourism can boost economic recovery, Mr. Holness explained that there needed to be greater collaboration among governments and tourism partners. He shared that Jamaica was able to buttress the impact of COVID-19 on the tourism sector through targeted intervention. Among them, a care package for tourism workers and employers, the implementation of a resilience corridor, and a COVID-19 protocol handbook for the industry. Mr. Holness also revealed that linkages with the local agriculture sector were able to meet the demands of the tourism industry when COVID-19 disrupted global supply chains.
I think that is a lesson that the industry should not just learn for the pandemic, but should start to figure out how do we ensure that a certain target percentage of the inputs we need are locally secured. And I would say go one step further. How can the industry be the catalyst for the development of the local capacity to supply your needs?
Climate change topped the agenda of talks between Prime Minister Holness and his Canadian counterpart Justin Trudeau. Mr. Holness urged developed countries to find creative ways to help developing countries like Jamaica stave off climate challenges. Among them, the annual Atlantic hurricane season, which usually brings flooding, damage to infrastructure, and increased costs to the budget.
We have to find creative ways of ensuring against loss and how that can be done with the support of our partners, and immediate response, which has always been a challenge. And I must say that Canada has been very supportive of Jamaica in particular in the pre-positioning of resources that would have assisted Jamaica to assist other countries when there are natural disasters.
Financing for development, the impacts of COVID-19, inflation, rising fuel and food prices were also discussed. On the margins of the summit, the Prime Minister held bilateral talks with Colombia's president. The two discussed ways to deepen cooperation in the near future. Ahead of his participation in the Summit of the Americas, the Prime Minister met with executives from global investment bank and financial services entity Citigroup. Mr. Holness also engaged with representatives of MasterCard. Similar conversations were had with PriceSmart International, which has 2 locations on the island. While in Los Angeles, Prime Minister Holness still had his eyes on Jamaica. He extended condolences to the family, friends, and colleagues of Sarah Newland Martin, the administrator and general secretary of the Kingston Young Men's Christian Association YMCA, died on Wednesday at age 75. Mr. Holness remembered the Paralympian and advocate for the disabled community as a phenomenal woman of strength, determination, and grace. The Prime Minister also expressed deep sadness at the passing of former councillor and mayor of Morant Bay, Hanif Brown. The veteran trade unionist and stalwart of the Jamaica Labour Party was remembered as a personal friend of the Prime Minister. Back in Jamaica Saturday, the Prime Minister was briefed on security matters by Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security Dr. Horace Chang. Mr. Holness also received updates from the heads of the Jamaica Defence and Constabulary Forces. And that's it for Jamaica House Weekly. Be sure to join us next time for more of the news stories coming out of the Office of the Prime Minister.
Science is everything. It's how we live, it's how we conduct business, we see the world and explore the world through science. Science covers several disciplines, creating numerous opportunities and fields of pursuit. This next feature zooms in on some of these, as well as the requirements and expectations.
Science is an essential cornerstone in the creation of a modern society.
As the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology pursues its mission to increase the popularization of science in schools, we're highlighting one of the many careers that one can undertake in this field. Nuclear science involves applying nuclear techniques to investigate and study different fields. Here in Jamaica, nuclear techniques have been applied to conduct studies in areas such as agriculture, health, and climate change. Unfortunately, the field of nuclear science is largely male-dominated, but there are females out there who have been doing great work and have solidified their space.
I work in the nuclear analytical lab. I started out in engineering and transitioned into this field, so it wasn't exactly on my radar. I wasn't told about it in high school, and it wasn't something I knew really existed per se, which is what we're trying to change here, to get people aware that there is this field that exists and is actually here. So I had the privilege of seeing an opening and I applied. I love projects. I love investigating. For me specifically, I love marine and atmospheric studies, which is how I use nuclear science to investigate the marine environment and urban air quality. It's been fun. No 2 days are the same, which works for me. And it definitely requires passion and interest because the field is constantly changing. There's always something new to learn, while there are things that are established. Like in science in general, science also continues to present new information, and that new information can change how you do certain things or maybe how you look at future projects. So it requires that you constantly read. It requires that you're constantly open to really, understanding why is it that you're doing what you're doing and how it actually can help solve the bigger picture, not just doing it for the sake of doing it. Science in general is a male-dominated field. It's for sure, that is exactly how it is. It's why the UN has the International Day for Women and Girls in Science, to encourage the changing of that situation. Personally, I've never really been daunted by the fact that it's male-dominated because it's something that I'm interested in, so I pursued it irrespective of that position. And so I'd encourage girls not to look at the fact that it's mostly men. Look at it as, okay, since it's mostly men, I will find my place. You can find, for everybody in this field, you can find your place and to learn from them. The men that I work with here are incredible. They teach you, they are open to, helping you to learn and to understand. And for me, who was transitioning from another career into nuclear science, something that I didn't study in my undergrad, they were pivotal in helping me to understand how to do things. I didn't have a female in this lab to work with. So males can be allies as well. So it doesn't have to be a male versus female thing. I think it's just to stay open. Don't get discouraged. I wasn't a huge fan of chemistry in high school, and yet a lot of my job has to do with chemistry. But I think things change, sometimes it's the teacher that you're exposed to, sometimes it's just a stage in your life. You might prefer a particular subject, but don't feel daunted by the task at all. Just still pursue what you are interested in.
The government's aim is for Jamaicans to live longer and better quality lives. A critical component of that is the health of our women. But the truth is, they are at risk of several health-related issues. And here's a first-hand look into one such issue.
In a highly desirable world, hinging on some utopic idea, women would probably have been able to bridge the gender wage gap in workplaces.
Maybe our external appearance wouldn't be so important, and perhaps some medical conditions wouldn't have been so prejudiced against us.
But life cannot just be layers of what we conjure in our imaginations. It isn't always a working woman's Shangri-La, or our wives, mothers, sisters, or aunts' health ambitions.
In fact, there are certain health issues that affect women exclusively. Issues such as menopause, postpartum depression, uterine fibroids, and miscarriage. But understanding women's health concerns is the first step towards taking control of our own well-being.
Uterine fibroids are benign tumors of the uterus. That's in medical terms. In layman terms,
They are masses that grow on the uterus or on the womb of a woman, and they can grow to various sizes. You can have one, you can have multiple. And the most important thing patients tend to ask is, are these cancerous? So benign means it's not cancerous.
Medical experts will tell you that the root causes may not be so clear, but there are certain factors that are most likely to account for this issue impacting women.
We believe a lot of women who have it actually do because of genetics. So if your mother or your sister or you have a strong family history of uterine fibroids, it's quite likely that you're at risk of having uterine fibroids as well. We also believe that they tend to pop up more so when your hormones are very active. So that's why it presents in those patients in their reproductive age. So once you get to your 20s, 30s, 40s, that's when you would expect fibroids to start to show up. It may be occurring in response to your diet. So if you have a poor diet, high in red meat, highly processed foods, very little fruits and vegetables, we believe that that impacts on the presence of fibroids and definitely the growth of fibroids.
Meet Raquel Bailey, whose unfortunate journey with uterine fibroids lasted for almost 9 years.
I was around 27, touching 28, and I went for my regular female checkup. When they did the ultrasound, they said everything was fine, but there was a point that he could not see beyond. So he decided to go do it vaginally. And that's when he found the fibroid on top of my uterus. I was saying to myself, it's hard. I'm not sure if I can get pregnant with it. I was worried about conception, of course, and I was worried about if it is cancerous or anything, because at that point I wasn't sure what fibroids was. I knew it ran in my family, but back then they didn't call it fibroids. My tummy began to grow, especially the top part, since it was resting on top. So my tummy began to protrude. And of course, when I had my period, the pain was severe. I had, to the point that I even had to lie on the floor to get a little bit of relief from it. Yeah, my clothes couldn't fit much because of the tummy hanging over.
The symptoms occur dependent on the size of the fibroids, the location of the fibroids, and also dependent on what else is happening to the patient otherwise, right? So common symptoms related to size are, if the fibroids are very big, then the woman looks as if she looks pregnant. So she notices that her tummy is growing, the waist of the clothes start to fit her a bit differently. She might start to have what we call compressive symptoms. Based on the location of the uterus, it can press on the bladder, which is in the front, and that's where your urine is. So you might find that you're complaining of more frequent urination. You're going to the bathroom to pee all the time, right? Another thing is that your bowel is at the back, behind your uterus, so you may get constipated. Again, because your nerves come from behind, from the spine backwards, then you can also have compressive symptoms on nerves around there, and some patients come with back pain. Because it is close to where the blood vessels go down into our legs and the nerves go down into our legs, some people complain about pain radiating all the way down to their legs, as well as swelling. If the fibroids are on the inner side of the uterus or within the muscle of the uterus, that's where your period comes from now. So those patients tend to complain about heavy bleeding. Bleeding that is lasting more than a week, more than the average period. They're soaking through pads in an hour, in 2 hours, messing up themselves, right? That causes a lot of social embarrassment. Not only that, but if you're bleeding that heavily, then you start to get symptoms of anemia. So you start to feel weak, dizzy, you might actually faint. Another symptom that patients can present with is pain. So if the fibroids grow to a certain size, then they start to outgrow the blood supply that comes from outer to inner. And sometimes they can, what we call, degenerate, and that causes patients to have a lot of pain.
I got married, and my husband and I spoke, and I said to him, all right, I don't want to do the surgery, have any surgical procedure done on me, just in case that they found more and they had to take out the entire thing. So I wanted to try and conceive before doing the myomectomy. Then I got pregnant in the February of 2021. That's when the fibroids became aggressive. It grew and it grew and it grew. I looked so much like I was full-term pregnancy when I was only 4 months pregnant. So it was very aggressive. I was really sick in the first part of the pregnancy. So much so that I was labeled a high-risk patient. After having my baby, I went to the doctor to do my regular checkup. And Dr. Madam was saying to us when we decided to take out the fibroids. So I told her we were waiting on her. She said, no, man, the decision is yours. So I said to her, all right, maybe we can do it now. I was there touching my tummy. Because when I went in, it was huge, huge. It was like a full baby. It was the size, the fibroid was the size of a basketball. It was, yeah, and there were 3 others, so it was 4 fibroids. And she took it out, and when she took it out, she said everything went well, and my uterus, it's healthy. That's the word she used. The best part of my journey having fibroids is hearing that there are treatment options available.
So fibroids can be treated in a number of different ways, but really and truly treatment should be aimed at the patient's symptoms as well as what their future fertility desires are. Now, if you are having bleeding problems and the size of the fibroid is not significant, then we can entertain giving you medical management to try and maintain the bleeding to a level that is acceptable. So sometimes that involves using tablets. There are some NSAIDs that we use for that. There are hormonal tablets that we can use. There's also the hormonal injection that we can use to help to reduce the amount of bleeding that you are having. If it is that you are having a problem with pain and size, then that's where surgery comes in. A lot of the patients ask, why doc, I don't really want to do surgery. I'm not ready to do surgery. And they ask if there's anything that can be used to shrink the fibroids. There are medications out there that have been used to shrink fibroids, but they don't maintain the fibroid at that size for the rest of your life. And they can only be used for a short period. If they are not so large but they are plentiful and they're causing you significant symptoms like your blood count is really low, you're frequently missing work, it really interrupts with your daily living, then we would recommend doing surgery. And surgery involves either removing the fibroids only, or we can remove the uterus in total. Now that decision is a big decision. If you have finished having your children, you don't want to have any more kids, then clearly removing your uterus is okay.
What I learned coming out of this entire experience is that I should not be afraid of my doctor, all right, or doctors in general. The gynecologists, they are there to help you. Visit them, have an annual or your regular routine checkup. It is to ensure that you have a healthy life.
And it's on that note we close today's magazine. It's always a pleasure sharing with you. If you missed anything, connect with us on our social media pages and our YouTube channel. You can also visit our website for any other government-related stories. Join us again tomorrow, same place, same time on this station. The hardworking team here at the JIS thanks you for tuning in. Until next time, take care.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.